Almost a year ago, climate change activist Greta Thunberg sailed into New York Harbor. I'm really proud to say that NWSA played a part in her welcome. NWSA Vice President Amy Sinclair organized that flotilla that met Greta and her crew. And even a few lucky NWSA members got to go on boats during that historic event. Further, our commitment to ecological activism in defense of our watery world, going green on the deep blue as the theme for the conference. We reached out to Rachael Miller as the keynote speaker. She is a sailor, captain of record-breaking oceanographic vessel, American Promise, a National Geographic explorer. Rachael is working to keep microplastics out of the water and continually works on developing innovations in infrastructure, education, consumer actions to protect the ocean she so much loves. Please welcome Rachael Zoe Miller.
Thank you. Thank you first to Shirley and Amy and the NWSA leadership, and especially to Debbie and everyone involved in this conference to turn it from an in-person celebration to a virtual one. I know you have all poured your time and heart and soul to make this happen, and I am really honored to kick it off. And so to hopefully be worthy of that honor, I am going to give you what should be the most optimistic talk about marine debris and microplastics that you've hopefully ever heard. And it will be based in science and innovation. So here we go. This is Expedition Science and Solutions for a Clean Ocean. And I'm going to start by just background very quickly. Our organization is a nonprofit called Rosalia Project for a Clean Ocean, and our mission is to protect the ocean and all the lakes and rivers that feed her to preserve a healthy, thriving marine ecosystem. What sets us apart from other marine debris organizations is that we address the problem through multiple angles. We do cleanups, and then 75% of what we do is about prevention, and that includes prevention through education, embracing innovation and technology, and doing solutions-based research. We work on the whole water column from the surface to sea floor, and I'd like to introduce you all to our ROV, Hector the Collector. That is Hector on the right. We very specifically, and from the start, we've been at it for 10 years, work on urban and coastal waters, which is my guess where most of us are doing most of our sailing. It is also the place from which most of our marine debris, 80% approximately, comes. We thrive, like many nonprofits, on great partnerships, and I see so many opportunities to work with you again in the future. And we're optimistic. We're optimistic because we recognize that this problem was made by the collective we, and we believe the collective we can get ahead of it. Now, I wish I could see you, but humor me. If you know who this guy is, raise your hand, even though you're at home. If not, you're looking at a really happy guy. This is Dodge Morgan. He is this happy because he just broke the solo nonstop circumnavigation record. He was the first American to sail around the world alone without stopping. And the reason he's here is because he did it in the boat that we have the honor to call our trash hunting mothership. This is American Promise. We're the third owners. Dodge Morgan donated her to the Naval Sailing Academy, or the Naval Academy Sailing Foundation, after his record-breaking 1986, and they used her for sail training. We've been working on making American Promise the greenest sailing research vessel in the world. Now, we've got a great panel coming up this early afternoon, so I'm not going to talk about this too much other than to point out we do some things on board behavior-wise to reduce our footprint, from eating vegetarian to partnering with a soap company, so we know exactly what goes overboard and our volunteers don't bring their own soaps. We compost and try to reduce packaging. But the thing I'm most proud of is that we thanks to 11th Hour Racing, have put solar, wind, and hydropower on board the boat to power our house bank. And we haven't plugged into shore power or turned our generator on in 6 years. It would be going on the 7th year this year. And we use a lot of power because of our mission-based work. So the ROV, cameras, computers, cell phones, everything charging at once. And while we try to be respectful, it's pretty spectacular that we've been able to do that. And that's a conversation I'd love to have with any of you after this, for sure. Figure we could just do it online, even though we'd be doing it in person. Because I can't not share how the boat sails, and we're all sailors. I thought I'd include a little American Promise eye candy. She has converted me. I'd never really sailed a cutter rig before, and I'm a total stay sail convert. So a little bit more about Rosalia Project, and that is we think about solutions a lot. What is the reason we're doing this? It is to protect the ocean, and in order to do that, we need to move from knowledge to solutions. And so we've developed this little chart here, and our expertise lies in the very beginning, doing primarily field science. But then there's opportunities for partnerships in modeling and sensing before we get to solutions, and then monitoring techniques to see how those solutions are going. And we see that there can be multiple categories of solutions, and it's going to take multiple solutions to get ahead of this problem. Our expertise in particular is in these. Now, we also, in terms of the marine debris problem, we work on derelict fishing gear, we do work on consumer debris, and we work on microplastics. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today. So first, let's get the language so we're all speaking the same way. Here are some microplastics. Now, there's two types of microplastic. First is called primary. It's bits of plastic that were made that small. So microbeads that are now banned in the US, they were in face wash and toothpaste and stuff. Resin pellets, which are the raw material of plastics manufacturing, so that's pre-consumer. And then non-bio glitter is pretty much all made of plastic, so that was meant to be that small. Secondly, we have secondary microplastic, and those take really two forms. One is fragments, so little tiny chunks that come off of bigger pieces, and then fibers, which are little stringy bits that came off longer filaments. Here's a little bit of size reference. Those are some microbeads with some normal tweezers. Our work in microplastics started in pretty much the beginning of our Rosalia project. We did a study looking at microplastic in 10 urban harbors around the US. This is not a permanent, this is how it is all the time, but it shows a snapshot. There were docks falling apart in Marina del Rey. That was a pretty fascinating result that results in opportunities for action. We witnessed mats like this is in Vineyard Sound. Some of you may recognize this, not great for the appendages of sailboats. And we cleaned them up and we tried to develop surface nets that could exclude that organic matter, but still catch the plastics, including microplastics. This is a device we called the baleen basker because it was inspired by whale baleen and basking sharks. And we tested it by hanging interns off the spinnaker pole and working out ways to test the efficiency of it in the back channel of the Piscataqua River in Kittery. So if you've ever been there, you know it's like its own flume. But here's what I'm really going to talk about today. In 2013, we learned about the problem of microfiber pollution. And this is something that back then was very new. And it was a problem that screamed at us. It didn't just speak to us, it screamed at us. And we decided we wanted to see if we could be part of the solution, come up with a solution, contribute to knowledge about it, and spread the word. So here's the situation. Our clothes are falling apart. They're falling apart, it seems, all the time, but what we know the most about is how they're falling apart in washing machines. One fleece jacket in a study that Patagonia actually commissioned could put over 81,000 pieces of microfiber out the effluent water every time it gets washed. And there are studies that show that that can happen at all different rates, but there's a lot of tiny microscopic pieces of microfiber breaking off of our clothes that can only escape because there's not really anything on our washing machines to stop it. And so this microfiber, which is both from naturally derived materials and from synthetic clothing, statistics say, or studies show, that the majority of our collective clothing is synthetic, and that's why this is part of the microplastic problem. So back to this picture, what this is microfiber filtered from a load of winter Vermont laundry that we did. We filtered it, we dried it, and this is under a microscope. And the reasons we care about this are the same reasons and the same dangers that got microbeads banned. Is they pose a threat to our marine ecosystem, to the creatures from the tiny up to the large. More information is being gathered about the effect on humans, but we know this stuff is getting into our human food web. It's in beverages, it's in honey, salt, and beer, and that's the most negative thing I will say, because we have a solution. Part of our effort was to develop a solution, and here it is live. This is the Cora Ball. The Cora Ball is a consumer solution to microfiber pollution. It's made of recycled and recyclable material. We make it 100% in the US, mostly here in Vermont, and there's barely any packaging and zero plastic packaging. Super easy to use, works in any washing machine. And for us, it was an exciting process because of course our original ideas didn't really work. And so as we ran into dead ends, we stopped to think, well, what needs to happen? Not so much that we need to catch microfiber, we need to catch small things from moving water. And when we just slowed down for a second, we realized coral does that. Coral totally does that. Coral is stuck to a rock and it catches small bits of plankton and from moving water. And so that was our inspiration for the design. And you see it has these coral-like stalks in the Cora Ball. There was an independent test done about the efficiency, and it's 26%. We'd have gone to market at 10%. The way of the future is that our washing machines help stop this through some kind of filter technology, but that's going to take a while for it not to quadruple the price of our washing machines or make us stand there and scrape it out 4 times a load. And so we wanted to make a difference right away. And one of our beliefs is that lots of littles make a big. Lots of little problems make a big problem, but lots of little positive efforts add up to a big positive impact. That could be said for a lot of problems and potential solutions for sure, but as it relates to this, the study that was done calculated that if the whole community in Toronto used Cora Balls, that together they could keep 6 to 9 trillion pieces of microfiber out of their wastewater treatment plant. We are all over the world. We're in shops all over the place. You can find us on coraball.com or on Instagram. But remember I said that this was more than just about trying to figure out a product or a solution. We also wanted to contribute to our knowledge about the problem. And so part of doing that was in 2016 to take American Promise, as well as some whitewater rafts, a dinghy, and our hiking boots, and sample the entire Hudson River. From Lake Tier of the Clouds, high in the Adirondack Mountains where she starts, to Ambrose Light, where the Hudson meets the Atlantic, just south of New York City. We sampled the surface in that year every 3 miles, and we vacuum filtered the water, and we counted all the microplastics we found. Over 95% of what we found that was plastic was fiber. And what happened wasn't what we expected. We expected to see a relationship, a strong one, between the presence of microplastic pollution and population. While we did see that one of our biggest fiber locations with the most fiber, was the one closest to a wastewater treatment plant outflow, you'll see by our heat map that we did not see a statistically significant difference in concentration across the whole river. And we marked where the first wastewater treatment plant, municipal wastewater treatment plant is. In fact, one of our biggest, the locations with the most fibers, is in a place where no people are allowed to live, much less have a washing machine. And we found this fascinating. When I got those results, the first thing I did was walk outside my house to where the dryer exhaust is, and this is what I found. And so we thought, uh-oh, let's check that out. We put it under a microscope, and it looks exactly like what we got out of the washing machine. And so, as often happens in science, you get some answers, but you get a lot of questions. And so that 2016 expedition led us to last year's expedition, which was, we are so grateful, funded in part by National Geographic and Kilroy Realty and 11th or Schmidt Marine Technology Partners. And we went back to the Hudson. But this time we're able to ask, and we're working on answering more questions. So the questions are, well, this is more than just about wastewater treatment plants. What else? Where else are the sources? What are they? And so this time we sampled the air. When on American Promise, we had two. We had one that we put up the mast to about a third of the way up the mast, up the forestay. And we had a second air sampler at my inhalation height, which I'm not super tall, it's about 1.5 meters off the ground. We sampled the soil at every location that had actual soil. Some New York City places didn't. We sampled the surface again, and we used this cool device called a Niskin bottle to sample the midwater column and just above the seafloor. In addition, we supported the very act of doing this science by field testing some innovations that will enable more accurate and more accessible microplastic science. Now, it's kind of torture because we're still processing all of that data, and our partners at Stafford University and us, we have been temporarily separated from labs because of COVID, but we are still working on it. And I hope a year from now, when we can see each other in person, I have an update for you. And again, we didn't want to just make a product or just learn about the problem. What we're also doing is we're taking our experience of learning about microplastic pollution and weaving that into an education program. So this education program is specifically about microplastics. And we are doing a couple things. One is including future STEM scholars and change makers in the active field research and expedition science. This is in Brooklyn with this amazing team of kids who were the Geo Challenge winners of National Geographic's Geo Challenge. They devised their own way to clean up microplastic from rivers, and I am their mentor to work on that problem together. So we had on board and we showed them how to use the Niskin bottle. We're also working with young people in partner programs. This was from let's call it Kingston to Rockland, Maine. This is learning about how you eat if you don't have opposable thumbs and you're a sea creature, and the ways you eat resemble more tools and combs. And what if that rice that is representing plankton is laced with plastic? We also visit summer programs, and we get down and do some what I call bikini science. So this is at Sachem Head Yacht Club this past summer, working on understanding what causes microfiber pollution in washing machines. Now, all the work we do isn't just microplastic. And what I will say is, for those of you interested, I hope you'll take down or screenshot my information at the end, because we are working on a teacher packet, and this can be homeschool teachers as well as traditional and informal teachers, to help run some of these or all of these microplastic activities. But we also do a program that's beyond microplastic, and that is a solutions workshop focusing on the problem of marine debris. So we always start with understanding and getting into the problem, which means a marine debris cleanup with data. So sometimes you just collect data as you go, and sometimes you dump it out, you sort it out, and you check it out to understand what we found in a certain place and what's in other places. How does it compare? We do behavior change games to understand what does inspire behavior change. And we start asking students and participants what screams at them, like microfiber screamed at us. We brainstorm solutions. We have someone with us often who has been part of a startup who can help talk about what it takes to bring ideas to reality. And we have the students share their ideas with each other or their own community. This gentleman, he's a junior in high school. We also travel with a 3D printer. So for people that do come up with physical ideas, we can just kind of print them out, or at least a little example. He didn't like seeing 5-hour energy, the little bottles, and lobster claw bands on the shoreline. And we surmise that a lot of them come from fishing boats and probably out the large scuppers. And so he designed essentially a storm drain cover for fishing boat scuppers, which we adore that idea. It's not all about kids. We have opportunities for adults. In fact, personally, I think it is as important that adults participate in workshops like this, because the diversity of angles, perspectives, professions, and experiences is what we need to come together to come up with these solutions. And our last technique that we use is to pay attention to the importance of not just understanding problems or coming up with solutions, but being able to talk about them, being able to tell the story. National Geographic calls it science telling. And I completely love that concept. And it's something that we work on with all of our groups. So I'm going to leave you with my short amount of time left with a kind of bullet round, fast round of solutions that we love. This isn't all about our solutions, but there are people all over the world who are putting their considerable talents toward this situation. And I want to stress that we believe that it's not just one solution that's going to solve this problem, but it's going to be a suite, probably a couple of them, of solutions. So they're grouped in order of those categories that I showed you earlier. If you'd like information about any of them, direct message or email me at the end. We're going to go fast, but hopefully it will fill you with some hope. All right, here we go. We've got some great people doing accessible education for youth, from cafeteria culture based in Brooklyn to trash shouldn't splash here in, they're up in Maine. Woods Hole Oceanographic is working on it. So this isn't just for the little kids, it's for the big kids too. And not just marine science, but we've partnered with the School of Law, Policing, and Forensics, essentially CSI for the ocean, to take forensic methods and apply them to marine science, because as far as fiber sourcing goes, they have it down. Messaging is so important. Many of you have seen Beat the Bead. You've probably seen balloons blow. I think there is a place for art in this. This is in Jamestown, Rhode Island, reminding people that storm drains are connected to the bay. There's amazing marine debris art that is from pieces that are collected. There's exquisite marine debris art from pieces collected. This is with a partner artist from Long Island, Cindy Pease Rowe. She makes stunning sculptures, and then she does DIY kits, so the rest of us can make less than stunning sculptures, but we have a really good time doing it. Last night, I had the absolute honor to be on a UN World Oceans Week event. And again, if you're interested in seeing this, I'll send you the link to see it. It was ocean and art and fashion, and it was amazing. One of the people, she's replacing plastic beads with glass beads. She's making textiles from aloe vera fabric and rose petals. Could you imagine wearing something made from filament derived from rose petals? She's also working on a technique to essentially paint on water and float silk on the water to take that pattern up. It's extremely benign to the environment and spectacular. In the regulation and policy world, this is an important element. There's the already passed Save Our Seas Act. There's another one being debated now. Many of you are familiar with much more municipal, local, state efforts at regulation that have to do with, say, banning plastic bags. And then to just make it complicated, there's states that are working to ban the bans on plastic bags. And then there's states that are working to ban the banning plastic bags, which that would be a good thing, that last one. We also, of course, have innovation and redesign, and that is looking at materials. So for people that have to use straws, making their straws benign. For agricultural uses where plastic is widely used, this company derives a plastic out of tree lignin, and all that happens at the end is you plow it into the field and there's compost and CO2. That's all you get at the end. It's spectacular. The Marine Debris Tracker is a way for all of us, everyone on this call, to contribute to our collective knowledge. I'm going to talk over my friend Michael Brown here, and he's done some biomimicry to design a way to get rid of meat diapers. You can picture meat diapers, those disgusting plastic things at the bottom of a meat tray. Well, he's designed a way to hold the liquid in based on honeycomb. So you can have a PET, recyclable tray with no meat diaper. So that's a great one. And innovation doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It can be simply brilliant, like using spaghetti instead of throwaway stirrers. There's opportunities for innovation and solutions and infrastructure. So to divert floating plastics, but that could be difficult if the river needs to be there's people, boats, or fish who are using the river. So this is a brilliant solution from the Netherlands. It's called the Great Bubble Barrier. And then there's places where it is okay to just block the river and say there's enough stuff that we need to pick it all up. I saw someone's from Baltimore. I'm a fan of your city for putting 2 trash wheels in, and some of you have probably seen sea bins in your marinas. There's other ways to support this through USAID announced last year they would help de-risk investment in waste infrastructure projects. So that's a financial tool. And there's supply chain efforts to Plastics Global. They take fishing nets, ropes, and trawls and pelletize them to be a raw material for people making things out of plastic. And there are companies that are embracing what's called the informal sector and areas that have less developed waste infrastructure, and thousands of people who are called waste collectors who make their living from going to landfills and picking out the recyclables and then selling them. I saw this when I visited Jakarta for a marine debris expedition, and the Jakarta landfill alone supports 10,000 waste pickers. So this company makes demand for what they're picking up, and they're turning it into 3D print material. And my last is science. The power of science is real. This is Jenna Jambeck's paper that ranked countries in terms of how much of their plastic waste ends up in the sea. It was followed up by this paper that identified river inputs specifically. And when I was in Jakarta, a minister of maritime affairs shared with us how unpleasant it was to be called out, and how they realized they have rivers that looked like that above on the top picture, and they put their military on it to clean it up and make sure that doesn't happen again. And I'm going to end with, in case you're thinking that that's at the government and I don't have an army, is what you can do by yourself and how much of an impact you can make. This is one water bottle. I want you to think in your mind how many pieces of microplastic that you think it could produce. 39,000 individual 1 millimeter microplastic. That's kind of big. So if you don't let one water bottle into the sea, you protect the ocean from 39,000 pieces of microplastic. And let's do this with a plastic grocery bag, a single-use plastic grocery bag. Boom. You don't let that exist in the first place, or keep it from ending up in the ocean, or take it off a beach. You've just kept nearly 500,000 pieces of microplastic that's really hard to get out of our collective public waterways that we all love so much. Lots of littles make a big. So it's really been my pleasure to kick off this conference. I am so excited by all the topics that are being covered, and wanted to generally invite everyone to come by and see American Promise if we're on the same dock. If you'd like to be part of our mission, getting your hands dirty, sandy, salty, and muddy, just keep in touch. Here's my information. We are not launching this year, but we are planning on launching next year. So once again, thank you so very much to everyone. I can't wait to learn from all of you as well.
Rachel, thank you. Thank you very, very much.